Excited today because I'm going to be adding some more lights to our van, and not just any lights. I'm going to be adding the Auxbeam X Pro 3 series. So I've actually got 4 of these lights. I'm going to be installing them at the rear of the van to give us maximum flood lighting when we're reversing or unloading or loading up the van in the night. It's just going to open up a lot more opportunities when we're wild camping. So if you saw my previous video where I installed the Auxbeam controller, one of the reasons I did that in advance is because it makes installing additional accessories such as lights super easy. Other than drilling holes and running some cables, it's a pretty simple install, but I'm still going to show you exactly how I'm doing this, and then at the end of the video you'll be able to see the output that these lights produce, which I'm hoping should be pretty impressive. So in terms of specs of these lights, the color temperature ranges from 3000 Kelvin to 6,500 Kelvin. And the reason they do that is because you've got 2 lenses that you can use, a clear lens and an amber lens. So these are the pod lights themselves, and as you can see they've got the clear lens, and it's got lines in it, which is the floodlight, which allows it projects the light into a wider angle. You can get these in a spotlight configuration, which is basically just a different lens, and you can also get a half and half, so half flood, half spot. As you can see, it's got vents at the back for dissipating heat, weatherproof cover on the front, a short cable to a DT connector style plug, and that is the light. So you get 2 lights in a pack, plus some amber lenses, mounting brackets and bolts and Allen keys and all sorts of bits and pieces. And then you also get this little Nest wiring loom, which includes a relay, a switch, and an inline fuse. Now I'm not going to need any of that because I've got the controller. So essentially I'm going to be discarding all of that, leaving me with just the positive and negative cables running off to the lights. So I've already jumped the gun slightly by installing 2 of the pods onto the roof. They're not wide in, they're just mounted up there, and I've already taken the liberty of sorting out this loom by cutting off the relay and the switch and the inline fuse. So that is ready to go, and that will plug straight into the light. These ends will need to be run down into the van. So in this install, where I'm effectively running 4 cables inside the van through a hole that I need to make, I'm going to be using a Scanstrut gland, and the one that I've decided to go for is the Scanstrut multi-cable seal. What this essentially is a piece of rubber block here, which you can then drill your own holes to its own width. Generally it's used for 4 cables, but you could potentially squeeze a few more in there, and then this outer casing clamps down, locking it all to place and squeezing the rubber around your cables. So that will make a super tight waterproof seal for my cables, and it's going to be mounted flush onto the roof of the van through some bolt holes. There's also a little foam gasket just to make sure that no water leaks down underneath. So although Auxbeam have sent me these lights and the controller, which I did in my previous video, they are not paying me to make this video specifically, and that my install and any review that I give of them is completely my own. But obviously I appreciate the guys at Auxbeam for sending me both the lights, the controller, and this t-shirt, and I've put a link to the products in the description box below should you want to also purchase any of these products. And if you haven't already, please like, please subscribe, please hit that little bell button so you get a notification when I upload a video. I really appreciate it. It massively helps this channel. One thing I really like is in the bracket built in is these 2 little notches either side, which stops the bolt swiveling. So that means you can just feed that through and then just tighten it up, so you don't need to put a spanner on this side. That's a nice little touch, that. Very happy with that. So there we go. This is the reverse light, which I'm going to keep the amber lens on for the moment. I just think it looks quite cool. And then there's our side spot and a nice big splodge of bird poo. The Scanstrut I intend to put in here to get the other side done. One of the things I really like about these lights is that all the fittings are stainless steel and really solid, really nicely built, and you know that they're not going to rust, and it's going to last. This is good kit stuff. I'm just going to cable tie these cables onto the Unistrut just to keep it all nice and secure. Do love a good cable tie, and they aren't going anywhere. So these are the male end of the DT connectors, and they simply connect into here, and then I'll run them over to the other side of the van where I can then feed it down into the Scanstrut gland. You'll see I've got a Scanstrut on this side as well. This is for the solar cables, and I've also, this is a puck for my Wi-Fi. I just like drilling holes in my van. So I've just labelled up this one in orange, which indicates the amber light on that side. So when I feed it through, I know which light it is. And then I'll do the same for this one. I know I've got the two amber lights. So this is the Scanstrut gland, and I'm just marking out where I need to cut the hole. I don't want it to be too close to this ridge, otherwise it won't sit flush. That looks pretty good to me. And that's also in line with the other side, so I know that there's no rib. So in theory, this should be easily accessible from the inside. In theory. Just a little alcohol wipe, just to clean off the area. The bit where I want to create a nice seal. So I always like to make sure I tighten up these screws by hand, because I like to make sure that the screws are biting into the metal. You don't want to rip through it. This is going to have to come off tomorrow. I want to get back to this because I need to finish it off. Okay, it's another day and it's not raining, it's dry, although it is a bit overcast. So I'm going to cut the final hole for the Scanstrut and we can feed the cables through. Right, that's dry. Cleared away the insulation on the inside. So we've got a nice clear path for the cables. So next thing we're going to do, just a little blob of sticker on the screw holes, just to make sure they are fully sealed. I hate this stuff. Go, Scanstrut is in, all four cables are on, all zip tied, nice and neat. Pretty happy with that. And no leaks, that's the main thing. So this is inside our cupboards, our units. Just up there is where all four cables come out, and they basically drop out the back side of our lockers. And then I run the cable along the back, all the way through to the other side. And then this is our kind of top shelf unit where we keep our GX multi-control and the BMV for the Victron. But the cables, I've run them all the way along. And then what I've been doing is I've connected the two positives there, and then the single positive coming from the power, which I'll show in a minute, and then the two negatives going into a single negative. And then that cable runs all the way along, down the A pillar, down through the glove box, and then up and out of the gland into the engine bay. And then I've connected it into point number 2 on the Auxbeam controller unit. And then I've fed a second cable, again, exactly the same route, and then fed it all the way along to here. And it's exactly the same. Got these Wago clips, and then I just need to trim these ends and then connect it all up, and that should work. Past me did a sensible thing, which was leave access, so the ceiling comes to here, and I've left all this access so I can run additional cables as and when needed. You know, when I built the van, that was its design, and so far it's actually worked really well. So there we go, all the cables are connected and mounted to the side of the wall. I've also put another one up there just to keep the cables elevated and away from rubbing any of the wood. The cable I've used running from underneath the bonnet up and over is 3mm squared cable, which is rated to 32 amps. And then this cable, I believe the standard stuff that comes with the Auxbeam lights is 2mm squared. So by my calculations, the distance running from the controller up to the lights, basically the voltage drop is under 5%, so it's well within the threshold. Now it's time to go put all this back together and test it. Okay, so here we are at the switch controller under the bonnet, and just to show you the final install. So we've got the cables, the amber one and the clear ones running into positions 1 and 2. I've also switched the 30 amp fuses out for 20 amp fuses, just to protect the cable and the WAGO connector a little bit more. Also just ran the cables in some conduit all the way up behind to the grommet in the firewall, again just to protect them from any rubbing down there. But that is all in, nice and tidy, and really easy actually. You know, once you've got the cable through, it's easy to wire into that. So go test it. Here we are, driving down just a little lane. See, it illuminates pretty nicely down there. Easy enough to see. But we're going to switch the front fogs on. Gives a nice bit of brightness from the front. Just really helps give a lot of extra light in the peripherals, particularly down the verges when you're driving down fairly narrow lanes. Nice rear mirror view as well. Just for its complete party trick, I've turned all 3 lights into pulsed, and this is what happens. I think that's a bit too much. Yeah, it's probably a bit too much. Still, pretty cool.